In the world of cinema, the opening title sequence sets the tone for everything that follows. In Aliens, James Cameron crafts an unforgettable introduction that in just less than 2 minutes encapsulates the film's mood, themes, and stakes. The title sequence begins in a black void or the emptiness of space, a stark black screen with a faint ambient sounds of humming in the background. The silence is broken only by a subtle, ominous score, foreshadowing the isolation and dangers that await. Through this form of cinematic expression, Cameron immediately sets the mood of unease and anticipation. The way that the title is revealed is masterful. The specific effect that Cameron is using here reminds me of a window blind and us opening the blind to see the light, which is an introduction into this new universe, this new world, this reimagining of the alien universe. The blue also esoterically represents the sacred feminine principle, which correlates and sets us up for the war between the mothers in this film, that of the alien queen and Ellen Ripley. The color blue can also represent coldness or receptivity and passivity, which is eventually subverted later on in the film. So I feel that this is a setup for us to not only be receptive for the new birth into this new world, but also it gets us as the viewer to express a certain emotion of calmness during this intro. But the background sounds tend to be in opposition to this. The subtle, haunting score by James Horner gradually builds in the background with layers of eerie, almost mechanical sounds creeping in, which play into the effect of the hypnotic suggestion and subliminal influencing that is taking place during this opening scene, and also plays as foreshadowing for later sounds in the film. But we also hear in this score the drum beats of war, which sets the mood and the tone for the Vietnam allegory and metaphors and imagery that comes later in the film. Our subconscious mind immediately knows that we're in for a completely different experience than Ridley Scott's original film Alien. Now, James Horner is actually a very renowned cinema composer in film history. He's done movies like Braveheart, Avatar, The Land Before Time, Casper, Zorro, and Troy. I believe he also worked on Apocalypto. If we take a listen to this again with the volume boosted, we will start to hear some interesting things going on. So right off the bat, there are dissonant chords being played in the background and very unconventional sounds like metallic scrapes or distorted strings, which adds to this psychological unease. But these dissonant chords also, to me, sound like a haunting scream, which could be foreshadowing the screams of the deaths of the Marines later on in the film. While Horner's score for Aliens is distinct, it also has subtle references to the original Alien score by Jerry Goldsmith. The use of certain motifs and tonal similarities create a sense of continuity between the two films, while also signaling that this is a new, more intense chapter in the story. This title sequence also is correlated to the movie's original poster, where the subtitle says, "This time it's war." The center of our focus ends up directly on the letter I in the word aliens. This letter I takes this womb-like shape, as if we are peering into another world or being birthed into another world from inside the womb. The light is emanating on the outside of this slit, and eventually it fades into nothing but pure light, just like what a newborn baby most likely would see with the light shock that happens when you're birthed into the new world. Not only is this correlated to the queen xenomorph, but also this kind of symbolism is correlated to the archetype of Ripley as a mother. The letter I itself is also 2 words in green language, or the Enochian language, which is also known as the language of the birds. It can represent I as the individual, or I phonetically being EYE, as in the eye of sight. This whole process is the first alchemical transmutation coming out of darkness into light, and this eye can be correlated to the third eye chakra, or the pineal gland of the bisymmetrical hemispheres. This blue hue that is used on this title sequence is also used throughout the entire movie pretty much. During a lot of the scenes with the Marines, especially when they go into the hive, and with their kill cams, this blue hue is used quite a bit. I find it extremely significant. It's almost as if we are in Albion, where this blue hue is overlapping with the steam and the fog effects that they're using, which brings about this mystical and kind of spiritual environment. If we take a look at this in contrast to the later encounter with the xenomorphs in the med lab, we see that they're using a completely different color spectrum. They're using red lights and a red hue during this encounter. Psychologically, this can be related to the states of mind that the Marines are in, where they are caught off guard during this first encounter, whereas later on, they full well know what they are in for, and they are trying to make a stand and take action against the xenomorphs. This is also indicative and symbolic of the extreme situation that they're in. So this red light being used is also trying to intensify the emotions of the viewer during this gun blazing action sequence, which is one of the first times that we actually see the Marines hold their own against the xenomorphs temporarily. Well, I think I'll end this video here. I was going to make this a full analysis of the film, but as I started to formulate this project, I realized that the way that I wanted to go about this is more in sequences, more as a series, which will give me not only more content to release quicker, but also be able to isolate each section of the film that I want to break down and each thing. Now, after all of these sections are brought together, I will release a full multiple hour video that somebody could watch or anybody could learn from. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will be releasing another one in the very near future. The next one that I have planned is the Snow White correlation to Ellen Ripley. I also have the tarot and aliens being worked on, and the myth of Narcissus and its correlations to this movie. Another one will be the correlation of the triune brain, and I want to do one on the allegory of natural law within this film, which I think is one of the most relevant of all the topics that I will be talking about. But there will be plenty more where that comes from. Another one that I can think of off the top of my head is the H.R. Giger biomechanical sexual symbolism, which I would love to bring to the table. Thank you for joining me again here at S.E.E.D Truth Academy.